Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to This is a Revolution, your weekly podcast about all things Rev Pro. I'm George. I'm here with my good friend, Dave the Mark. Dave, my friend, how are we?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Combating the freshers flu of the germs that we are passing around school at the moment that everyone seems to be getting, and combating it with an absolute cracking steak dinner with some really lovely veg that to build my immune system back up, mate. So I'm in a terrific mood. How are you?
Yeah, mate, I am all good. Work is busy, but work is also really, really nice as well, as far as busy work can go. So, yeah, just been busy and just a wholesome few days of not really doing all that much. I took my mum out for afternoon tea at the weekend.
Nice. I love that.
So my mum's disabled, and we were supposed to go for afternoon tea at the Ritz a couple of years ago. And every now and again, she gets a bit ill and can't do things. And as we were due to do that, the week we were due to do it, she got ill. So we had to cancel. And I was just gearing up to doing it again at the Ritz, and she got a bit ill. So it's the kind of ill where she's okay if we take her into town and she gets a bit ill. She's nothing too bad's going to happen, but it's just nice and easy to get her home. Whereas London is minimum, it would be about 2.5 hours for us to get her home. So not nice when she's not feeling up to it. So yeah, we went to the a localish place. It's a really lovely old hotel. It's where I got married, and it's the first time I've been there since going back as well. So sorry, first time I've gone back there since getting married as well. So yeah, it was a really, really lovely afternoon. So yeah, we went and had some afternoon tea, and yeah.
I love that. The last photo that I have of me and my mum before she passed away was from an afternoon tea. And it was just one of these random. We went to this little afternoon tea place in Bedford that's behind an old vicarage. And it was so nice because it turned out that all of the staff that worked there were students I used to teach. And I didn't know that beforehand. So we arrived and they were just all literally maybe I reckon we got served by 4 different people that I used to teach. And I love that shit. It's so lovely. I've taught in the same area for 15 years. So I'm pretty well established in the community. So that was really, really lovely. And we took a photo of ourselves just outside the vicarage because it was such a pretty place. And when she died, I was looking through my photos to find my most recent photo of her, and that was it. So I've got it printed and it's up in my classroom at school, and it's just one of those ones where I love it. So I'm all anything whenever anyone talks about taking their mums for afternoon tea, it gives me this real. There's obviously a pound of sadness with it.
Yeah.
But there's also you celebrate all the good stuff. I got 35 years of amazing experiences with my mum. So
yeah,
I'm trying to be as positive as possible. But yeah, it sounds like you had a lovely time.
I saw something recently which says celebrate the small wins no matter what they are, and the fact that we can just go and do that on a random Saturday afternoon, that just felt like a win enough in itself. So.
And also there are so many people out there who don't have a relationship with their mum where they would want to do that, or where their mum would want to do that, or where they can even do that. Maybe mums are very, very far away, and there's obviously people that have lost theirs much sooner than I lost mine. So yeah, absolutely, mate. Celebrate the wins.
Exactly. But this week, need to chat some Rev Pro, Dave, but I mean, you know what? I'm glad we've got this today. I'm not going to lie. I mean, obviously, we're normally recording on a Tuesday, and due to traffic last night, I couldn't record last night. And I'm so glad we're doing it today, because otherwise I'm just going to depress myself with election coverage. Because...
I literally woke up this morning and was just really it's like the Empire Strikes Back, to use a Star Wars phrase. When you text me last night saying any chance we could do tomorrow, I was so glad, because I was just so exhausted after work yesterday. I don't know why. I think it was just first proper day of teaching back after the half term. Plus I've kind of got this bug that I'm just trying to sore throat and earache and shit like that. So I was like, winner, yeah, I'll just sit and watch telly. And then, like, I'd kind of forgotten all about the election. I'd forgotten that it was this week. And then it was my moment today. I can't remember if it was, I think it was when I woke up this morning. I turned on my Twitter, and my Twitter feed is quite like bespoke. So on Instagram, like, I read everybody's Instagram stories, and I look at everybody, like everyone that I follow. I really look at all their posts, I look at all their Instagram stories. But on Twitter, I tend to use it for the news, like the wrestling news. So I tend to just kind of mainly follow wrestlers, and even then, I tend to follow wrestlers who post about their wrestling rather than wrestlers who post just about life. But today my wrestling Twitter feed was dominated by Jake Hager, who was very, very outspoken with all of his political views. And I will admit, at the end of reading my little stream of Jake Hager posts, I decided I don't think I need to keep following Jake Hager. No disrespect to the guy, I can keep his politics and his wrestling as two completely different things. But I don't think I want to. I don't want to wake up in the morning to read all the political bollocks.
Yeah,
I'll wait for him to get in the ring and deliver a match that entertains me, and I'll pay attention to that rather than all of the abortion and immigration and all the other horrible topics that are now going to be. Yeah,
it's. I know this stuff. As soon as I saw them, I was just like, "What the actual fuck?" Like, I saw that last weekend he was in France wrestling Connor Mills and seemed to go down like a house on fire. And look, I'm not going to be naive to say that all of my favorite entertainers share the same worldviews as I do. Okay, it pains me when I see some of my favorite musicians who are also of certain political persuasions, but I always say there's people that I genuinely respect, people who are doing it for the right reasons. But given how outspoken Trump is, I can't respect people with those views.
I think, like, for me, I've always tried to separate the artist from the art. And you know, if you only ever watch films made by people that you agree with on all political senses, actors and actresses that you agree with, musicians that you agree with, artists you agree with, wrestlers, all of these things, you're going to end up watching, listening, and absorbing very little. But sometimes when there are some things where you're just like, do you know what? You can have your political views. That's cool. I'll have mine. We don't need to put them out there. But when you're waking up to like 10, 11, 12 tweets just back to back to back, literally trolling people, I'm like, I think
exactly.
I don't need to follow this account anymore. Sorry.
Nothing like a gracious winner, is there? But what I will say, and my stance won't be changed on this, is trans rights are human rights, and nobody should be telling someone what to do with their own bodily autonomy. That is the shit. It is 2024. This shit needs to stop.
Yeah, there are political views that are deal breakers, and that is one of them. I'm a father of girls, and I do not want my girls growing up believing that is, if they find themselves in a position that they don't want to be in, you know, especially, you know, I've also had children and have seen the scan. We had a 6-week scan because we went through fertility treatment. But 6 weeks, personally, that is not a baby. That is not even close to being a baby. That is my jizz and a bit of the missus egg mixed together. That does not constitute a baby.
Oh, okay. That is, you know what? That is a way to put it. Yeah.
On that note, I've got something to show you. I've got something to show you now. But yes, not quite like that, George. But yeah.
Okay.
Now, for anyone who is listening on Spotify or iTunes, apologise immediately. This is going to be terrible radio. But for those of us that are watching, we've spoken before about the lovely, lovely, lovely man at the 229 called Rob, who
Oh, yeah.
makes these Rev Pro cards for me. He has his own set and he makes a set for me. Everyone who's ever wrestled for Rev Pro has one. He does some awesome stuff. Like this week, I got a new Sunshine Machine one, which is just like a really retro picture of them, which I absolutely love. But this week, not only did he add to the cards that we have of you and I with a third one for the handsome cromulent host that is Spike. But also, we got a new Charles Samuels, a new Francesca, a new David Francisco, and a new one called Manders.
Oh my god!
All with a "This Is a Revolution" background and the cromulent wrestling logo on the back.
Oh my god! I love this.
Absolutely love them. Like, honestly, I don't think I always say it to him, and I think I try to be like, it can be really difficult when you're being like really, really sincere and genuine, that you want someone to realise how sincere and genuine you are being, and it's not just lip service.
Mm-hmm.
But I fucking love those cards so much. I have a huge pile of them. Like, literally, I'm talking like a pile like this big of them, that I will keep with me and treasure for literally my entire life. The sort of thing that when I die, I want my kids to be like, oh, we've got to look after his Rev Pro cards because they were really special to him. The same way that like I've got to look after all my dad's West Ham programs from the 60s and 70s when he had his season ticket.
Yeah.
Like, it's so heartwarming, and I absolutely adore them. So thank you so much, Rob, who I know will be listening to us.
Mate, I love it. My brain, right? I just can't comprehend it, and this is where I don't know if sometimes I just might seem awkward with this sort of stuff, but it's not. It's like a genuine. My brain can't comprehend that someone would put me on a card, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I know that this isn't like something that's sold out in shops or anything. This is something that someone has made. So they've spent the time doing themselves, and they've found our logo. They've put our logo there. They've taken out logo. It blows my mind that this was right. So we're in November now, right? And I think it was late May-ish, where me and you were talking, and you said to me, "Hey, if you do this Rev Pro podcast, I'm happy to help if you want." And I was like, "Are you kidding? I'd fucking love you on board, right?" And then that was just it. And it was kind of like just this idea in our heads. And the fact that we're not even 6 months down the line, and someone is making cards of us, like, and putting up, mate, I love that shit. Next time you see him, please could you ask him how much? I'll happily pay for him to do it, but I'd like my own set of them.
I'm pretty sure in my set that I've got so far, he's given me duplicates so I can pass them on to you.
Oh mate, yeah, that would be amazing. And when I come to, if I don't come to the 229, but to be fair, I probably won't be at the 229 this year. Probably not until at least April next year now. So the next time I see you, I will give you some money so you can buy him a drink or something at the 229. I know that he absolutely won't be doing it for anything like that, but it's just such a lovely thing.
He's like the nicest, quietest guy in the world. I think our very first ever conversation was talking about Tony Deppin in St. Neots and Stevenage when Tony came over, what would have been 2022, and then he came back again for the anniversary show at York Hall and wrestled. I think he wrestled Luke Jacobs on one night and Conor Mills on the other, if I remember correct. But yeah, such a gentle giant, such a lovely fella.
Oh, I love that. But Rob, the one thing that you are going to bear in mind now is that I am a completionist. So any more guests that come on in future, I'm just gonna say it now. I'm a completionist. Also, nice timing because I'm wearing my one called Manders t-shirt.
You got your Manders shirt on. I've got the old the Gym Punks t-shirt on today, which I only noticed it this week, and I can't believe it's taken me so long to realise. But the Gym Punks t-shirt has HXC, which was James Castle's last tag team with Dan Head. And I noticed all the Gym Punk stuff on it, but I didn't realise the HXC on it, which I really like as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the opportunity to rep James Castle.
Yeah, absolutely. Any opportunity is great. But Dave, speaking of the legends at the 229 who are giving us trading cards of our faces, I suppose we better talk about the show that happened at the weekend. So
Right.
you were there for the show as
I was
always.
indeed, mate.
Right. So this is a random tangent my brain goes in. Right after we were speaking on the interview with the wonderful Francesca, we kind of came to the conclusion that the only person that was featured like on every show in RevPro is Francesca, because I started getting into the thought process and I was like, well, Andy Quilden's not even featured on every show because there's going to be shows where he's not commentating. And as we've seen now as well, Dave
Yep.
Bradshaw's coming into the role, seemingly, at least for the big shows in London. Don't know what it means for the more regional shows like Southamptons and stuff like that. But obviously, there's been some shows this year that Andy hasn't even commentated on. So then it got me thinking, does that make Dave the Mark potentially the man who's been the second most featured on screen in some way, because you can always spot you at some point in the crowd? So is Dave the Mark the second most regular face on RevPro television? I don't know. Someone will find that out though. But
I think the 229 was my 30th for a throw show of the year.
yeah, although I
I
will
think
say
they've
that.
done. I think they've done 32 in England because I didn't get to go to Summer Sizzler because we were on holiday. I didn't get to go to the first Sheffield show of the year because we had a funeral the next day, and I had to look after the kids whilst the missus actually was setting it all up because it was her granddad. And then I didn't fly out for Germany or Barcelona. I don't have a passport, George. Can you believe that?
What?
I know it's never caused me a problem until this week when I realised I need to renew my driving license.
Oh
And
god.
if you don't have a passport, you can't do an online driving license form. You actually have to go in and physically see somebody at the post office
Oh
so they can
wow.
verify that you are who you say you are. My passport ran out at the start of COVID, and I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. Who knows
Yeah.
how long we're going to be boarded up in England for?
Of course, yeah.
I'll renew it when I'm gonna go on holiday, and we haven't been anywhere since before 2019 now.
Wow.
So yes, I 30 so far. I've got tickets to everything between now and the end of the year. So there's not many now. 2 Coventry, 1 229, 1 Sheffield, 1 Southampton, 5 left.
And
So yes.
then that pricing.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, and uprising.
Yeah.
There's 6 left.
6 left. Wow.
Cannot wait for each and every one of them.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great end of the year. I just had a look at mine, and I've been to 23 wrestling shows this year, which
That's cracking.
my previous and I'm blaming you entirely for this, you and the Southampton group, because meeting great people who love wrestling has just made me want to go to more, and it's probably the side of me where I say I'm a completionist. I want to do everything. I think last year was probably my year I did most wrestling shows, and I think I did something like 10. So I've definitely almost doubled it. But
I think like 2022, I think I went to like 12.
Yeah.
And then in 2023, I doubled that to like 24. And then this year, I'm going to end up adding another 12 onto it. So like tripling 2022's. My goal for next year is to go to every single RevPro show. To the point where when I said that aloud, I thought, hold on, let's just check any of my kids' birthdays on a Sunday next year. And there is one on Sunday, the 19th of October next year.
Oh.
So, Andy Quilden, if you're listening, please don't book a RevPro show on Sunday, the 19th of October. Go for the 18th, by all means, but not the 19th, please.
Well, judging by dates this year, I would say, and judging by the potentially the outcome of it and what we've seen, if they are going to make Global Wars your Doncaster special, then it may be the 18th of October. Although I would not mind if Andy Quilden decided to move that Doncaster show a few months earlier in the year, just for the driving sake, because I did not like the drive conditions driving up to Doncaster this year. But Andy Quilden, what doesn't matter what happens, you will get my money. I will be there at the Doncaster Dome. But
happy days, mate.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get myself booked in for some 229s next year. don't think I'm renewing the Southampton season ticket, but I think I'm going to be at every Southampton show. Um, Purely one of those things where now that I'm getting my love of going back to live music again, I'm just trying to spread my money out as much as I can. So I'll just be like, it's fine.
I don't get season tickets, and I go to
Yeah.
everything. Simply because if I get season tickets I'd get a Sheffield, Southampton, and London one. I don't know how much that would cost me, but
Yeah.
you're talking like several £100.
Plus
Um,
fees.
and it's at Christmas time. Like,
That's
so
it.
I'd personally rather spread my cost out. It's very different spending 25, 50 quid, 75 quid a month
Hmm.
than it is blowing sort of like 500, 600 quid at the start of December.
That's
Um,
it. And for
and yeah,
me,
I know that long term I'm losing money, but it's the same way that I pay my car insurance monthly rather than in one lump sum because at least it makes it sustainable for me.
yeah, that's it. Although to be fair, I paid my car insurance in a lump sum, so maybe I need to do that. I pay my car insurance monthly, and then just pay RevPro in a lump sum. But no, I got the season tickets because I was going through a stage of going, oh, I'm not sure about this, and then regretting I didn't go to so many shows
Yeah,
because I was like, yeah, I know Will Ospreay's on here, but it's all right. I'll catch him next time. And I go, no, don't do that, right? Just go because you'll have a great time. So that's what I did this year. That's why I got the season ticket. Whereas I think from next year, because again, I know so many more people there now, I'm not going to be going, oh, no, I don't fancy this. One, because I think everyone will bully me into going anyway. And two, it's just so much more fun when you know people there and you're going to see people. It's like, it's a
yeah.
day out seeing people as well as like going to the wrestling. So,
We can always talk ourselves out of doing stuff, right? Like it's just
yeah.
part of like human condition, probably not helped by sort of like age and time of year, and like when you're not feeling 100%, you can easily be
Mm.
like, do you know what? Maybe I'll give it a miss this week. But I always think like you, the you never regret. I've never regretted going.
Hmm.
So I remember
Yeah.
like my first time I went to the 229. It was headlined by Gabe Kidd and Yota Tsuji. I think it was February last year. I was rough, like really, really rough. And on the day, I was like, I don't know if I can actually drive to London or not. And I was like, oh, I'll do it. I didn't have like a COVID or anything. I wasn't going to make
Hmm.
anybody else ill. I just wasn't very well. And like Eddie Dennis versus Michael Oakley was on that show. That's one of my favourite matches of last year. Like I loved the story that they told. It was so beautiful, and like I could easily have been like, "Oh, do you know, I'm not feeling great. I won't bother." But now I
Hmm.
don't remember him not feeling well. I just remember how good Michael Oakley versus Eddie Dennis was.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like the Southampton that I came down to just after my dad died, and I was like probably the worst company for anybody that saw me that day. But it was the wrestling that made me feel so much better. So
Hmm.
like it is so easy to make an excuse and it's so natural too. But I always think like you won't regret actually going. You'll just have the FOMO afterwards when you're like, oh shit, how good was Leon Slater versus Zozaya?
Yeah.
Or how good was Ethan Allen versus Michael Oakley from like this Sunday?
Yeah, I had that last year when I had tickets to go and see the Menzingers at the 1865, and I also had tickets to go and see Trivium at Southampton
Mm-hmm.
Guildhall, and both of those I was just in a bad mental state through work, and I just went, no, I'm not gonna go, and now I was like, oh, I'm gutted I didn't go to both of those, and I think sometimes, like you said, you just got to push yourself sometimes, and once you're there, and that's what I really like is the fact that I know at Southampton I've got good people around me, and I know wherever I go, there's going to be a lot of people I know now, which is nice. So it kind of makes it that bit more social now as well. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm just accountable to me, but I'm accountable to go to see other people as well, which I quite like. So yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'm in a chatty mood tonight, Dave. So let's chat about the event itself. So
Yeah.
um, 229. So I'm going to start on this one. For me, it was a show of two halves. Sorry for the really lazy Michael Owen-esque punditry there. But it was one where I understood what they would trying to do with the show. And this is very much, I know, is from what I enjoy in wrestling, probably just didn't hit as much as um, I think they intended it to. So for me, it was there was the start was a trios match, which is not the best for me normally, and then we had an angle masquerade as a
Yeah,
match, which so it all felt very story heavy right at the start, and then we had a banger match, and then the pacing of the second half for me was much better, but I would still say that is judging it on like an incredible curve for Rev Pro. Like this is a show that, while I'm saying for Rev Pro, didn't didn't cater to my individual tastes. Shock, horror, why would it? But by the same token, that if this was a show that any other event put on, I would say that like for Rev Pro, I'd say this is probably an 8 out of 10 anyway. And if any other show put this on, you're talking 9, 10 out of 10. And it's just the consistency that we're judging it on with Rev Pro, right? So,
yeah,
but I found it quite interesting starting off with the first match. When we were talking about who the mystery partner could be, and I specifically never asked you, Dave, because I don't like to kind of, I feel like it's spoilers almost sometimes. Like you and I will chat about things sometimes. We'll go, "What do you think? What do you think?" And we'll
yeah, yeah. I know what you
pie
mean.
in the sky. But then there's sometimes where it's like, no, I don't want, because the reason I don't like doing it sometimes is because I know how logical you are, and sometimes it's like he's bloody nailed it on. My question is, did you get this one beforehand, or was
No,
this
not at all.
complete?
No, not at all. To the point where, so Trent Seven was at the 229 on Sunday.
Okay.
Just came and watched. And the person I was sitting next to was like, "Oh, by the way, like Trent's here. Like he came in earlier. Like what? Who? I'm guessing he's going to be the mystery partner." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Like it's a nice shock surprise of like a beloved wrestler back in Rev Pro."
Mm-hmm.
So I was and I couldn't think of anybody else. I thought it was going to be Cameron Kai. So I
Okay.
thought it was going to be Cameron Kai so that Cameron could get his hands on Cave and True and Lacey.
Mm.
Then when somebody said that Trent was there, and then I thought about the match graphic. The match graphic had a silhouette of somebody with quite long hair. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay. Maybe that was a little clue that it's Trent. But then when the you heard, did someone say mug? And then it was like, oh, it's Shah. But Shah's already wrestling later. That's odd. And then and then like the penny dropped, and I was like, oh no, this is really clever because Shah is putting everybody before Josh James. He put his feud with David Francisco before the potential to tag with Josh James. He didn't want Josh there with him in Southampton.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want this tag team. And to the point where when they've been booked to tag together, he's kind of ruined it by taking on a booking with a couple of mates for the laughs. Do you know what I mean? Like you could tell that it was like the whole kind of Shine machine was, this isn't going to be like a long-term partnership. I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine Sunshine Machine and Shah Samuels are like the best of mates backstage, but it's more like Shah had the opportunity to be like, oh, go on, boys, I'll go and join you. It'll be a laugh.
Yeah.
Like, as like almost like an exhibition because he was taking his match with Josh James so unseriously. It
Mm-hmm.
meant so little to him, but it'd be like, yeah, it's like so. I used to play five-a-side on a Thursday night every week. Five-a-side, 9 till 10, and there was a group of lads who played before us 8 till 9, and occasionally they'd send us a message and be like, "Oh, lads, we're like short of player. Don't suppose any of your lads want to play twice?" Now, like we played like pretty decent standard. Like we had a couple of players who used to play like regularly non-league.
Mm.
It was a decent standard. I was by far the shittest one there. But when I was fitter and younger, I could play a bit of football. But the idea of doing 2 hours of five-a-side, like five-a-side indoor, is relentless. It is non-stop. The ball don't go out for throw-ins and goal kicks and corners.
Nope.
You are non-stop. And the idea of doing it for 2 hours, and I did it a couple of times, but I kind of knew when I was doing it that I was going to be like half-assed in the second game, the match that actually I'd organised, and I'd do it when it was like, oh, do you know what, we'll be all right. I'll just go and goal for the second half. I'll go and goal for the second game, and it'll be fine. I won't be able to like run for 2 hours non-stop. And this is what it was like for Shah. It's like, oh, I'm tagging with Josh later. It'll be all right. That match isn't the be all and end all. This match is for a tournament. This gets me another booking. This gets me a whole weekend in Coventry, double payday. And at the end of it, we might win a trophy. But anybody could have taken that place. So I really, really liked the storyline that was there.
Yeah.
I thought it was really subtle. It was one of those ones where there'll be some people who are just like, oh, okay, could they not get anybody? So Charles Samuels did it twice. And then there'll be people who like are picking up what they're putting down.
Yeah.
And that's what I really enjoyed that side of it. And then like I thought the match was really good. I wasn't expecting True Lacey and Caven to lose.
No, neither was I.
It turns out I did. True and Lacey are already booked for the Trios weekend with another company. But the way I look at it is they probably, maybe they've booked that because they know they're not doing the Trios Grand Prix. And that's another reason why, personally, I don't like keeping up to date that much with what the wrestlers are doing in other companies. Because I want to believe that they could both win it. I don't want to go into it thinking, oh, I know what's going to happen here because this person can't do it because they're already committed to that company. Like, fuck that. I just enjoy it as the mark I am, trying to keep it in kayfabe as much as possible. Because when we all believe it's real, it's so much more enjoyable, right?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
I thought the match was really good. I thought True Lacey and Caven looked class together again. I thought they looked even more assured and confident this time because there were some times when like Caven was telling them what to do. And they really were like his little kind of lackeys running around, and I love that dynamic. I want Caven to be the dickhead bully, and a bit like we fucking did a Star Wars one earlier. We'll do a Harry Potter one now. I quite like the idea of like Caven being Draco Malfoy and True and Lacey being Crab and Goyle, like like the idiots who laugh at his jokes even though they're not funny, but you kind of like. You have to respect them because, like, True and Lacey will hit you. Like, they will fight Caven's battles. Like, I really like that idea. I think having the tag champs in the Trios tournament's cool as well because it means whoever they're going to wrestle, you've got that extra dynamic. Sunshine Machine worked the Copper Box. We then didn't see them for the 229, but we saw them in Southampton. We then didn't see them in Global Wars, but we've seen them back at the 229. But it's nice to see like the champions getting like on lots of cards after the kind of absenteeism of like Neon and Grizzled Young Vets and Subculture when like Mandrews was injured. So
absolutely,
I like that side of it as well.
Yeah, so did
and then
I.
if we look at the two matches together, I loved all the storytelling between Josh and Charles.
So this is interesting. Yeah, the storytelling between those two, I absolutely picked that up, and like you said, I thought it was a clever opportunity because I didn't think this is where we were going, but like you said, it makes sense when you kind of take the storyline into consideration. So I thought that was really good. Also, I'm just looking on RevPro Twitter now because I think as well, and this is the interesting thing with Sunshine Machine in there, is that I think they said that the winners of the Trios Grand Prix get a match of their choosing. So there's no. So someone asked the question about
each member of the team gets a match of their choosing. Was the way I remember reading it.
Got you. Yeah. So I'm just because I think someone asked about Trios belts because that was a question that we were right Trios belts. And I'm just trying to find it, but I think you're right. It's how I viewed it. The same, I think, was that.
So like from this, Sunshine Machine and Shaw won, Shaw could turn around and say, "Well, I want Lou Jacobs," and Sunshine Machine could turn around and say, "Well, we're tag champs, but we've always wanted to wrestle so and so. Please book that." That'll be, it's. Do I think Sunshine Machine and Shah are going to win the trios tournament? No, I don't. But you have to have, there has to be a suspension of disbelief with the view that there is a story to be told if they do win, and there is.
And that's
It's
it,
just
right?
it's just not, of all the possible options, the most exciting story, which is why it probably won't be them, and it will be one of the other two.
Where I think this is going, and kind of where it left me thinking, where does this go? Logically, where does this go? Right. And I think one of the things that we've spoken about when we've talked about Uprising is the time of year that it is. Do I foresee a lot of foreign-based wrestlers coming into like packing out a big show like this? No, I don't. Maybe like in Europe, but not international like Japan and America. Could be wrong on that, but it's just how I feel was most likely. So with that in mind, I reckon this could be building to Shah versus Josh James at York Hall at Uprising. That's where I
Mate,
think we're going with
that would be
this.
so cool. Like, because I know like there will be some people out there that are like, that's not the most exciting York Hall match because we want big names. We want, that's like a 229 match. But it's not a 2-2. It's a York Hall match if they're given the tools to make it a York Hall match.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment they are, because they're telling their story. Like every week, something news going up on social media about Shah and Josh James. Like the boys are doing the work to make their story something to talk about.
Yeah.
Whether it is, the backstage promo, whether it is, an Instagram post. What did Shah post this week? He posted a picture of him and TK and Mambo having a beer backstage, and a picture of him and Josh James where he's apologising to Josh in the ring,
Yeah.
and he put Wicked onto Coventry for the Trios Grand Prix, but I feel bad because I let down a really good bloke.
Do you know what I
And
really like?
there you go. Right? That's
That
the first time that Shah's acknowledged that Josh is a really good bloke.
what I really liked about that picture as well was you could say it's subtle, you could say it's not, depending on how you want to look at it. But if you look in the mirror of that picture as well, of the TK Shah and Josh is taking the picture. So
Yeah.
he's got Josh James taking the picture of it
Is
as well.
he?
Yeah. I
Oh, I love that. I didn't realise that.
I'm gonna see if I can find it, and I mean, I don't
But
know
that's
if
extra cool, right? Because then there's an added little element of being like, are you
yeah,
mugging him off again by making him take the picture of you?
yeah. So I'm just
Or
gonna
on the
check
other
up.
hand, like their friendship is secure enough to take this.
Yeah, so
I love it.
I've just got it, and so you've got like Shah like this, then TK's got his beer, and if you look in the mirror, Josh is like taking
Nice.
the picture. Yeah,
I
so
love that. I haven't even picked up on that, and
yeah,
yeah,
it's
absolutely
the
fine.
extra little and actually I didn't notice it then, but maybe he's updated, but he's actually tagged it, so it says photograph Josh James and tagged him with the credit of taking the picture.
Love that.
Um,
Absolutely love that.
yeah, just
Yeah,
a
it's
nice little.
fascinating because I don't see. I'm not sure who turns on who. If that's where we're going with it, because there's also a part of me that thinks maybe there isn't a turn for a long time to come. Because if Josh does convince Shah to tag with him, they could go on a run where this time next year they're tag champions because we've had like a year-long build of them being they can't do it together and then they can do it together and then they start taken seriously and then they're they nearly get there but they don't quite get there and then they finally get there at like a big event,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah,
or you just have Josh turn on Shah or Shah turn on Josh. But what I
yeah.
like is all three storylines have me interested. I'm not sure which is going to be the one, and I've got no idea when it's going to happen.
Oh,
Because in Southampton, there were people saying, like, I wonder if Josh is going to like turn on Shah.
that was me.
This week, I was looking at it. There's the moment where Josh pulled Shah up, and I was like, is he going to lariat him? Is he going to pull him up and like knock him down? But each time that they haven't done it, I've been like, all good. because I want to see more. I don't want to rush it. I want to like savor it. So yeah, I'm loving it.
I
I'm absolutely into this.
So I want to touch on something you mentioned a little bit earlier there, Dave, about the this isn't York Hall match, and I think this is quite an interesting point you've made there, and this is why I think this match could end up on that card, because back in the day, WWE in its like biggest cultural zeitgeist, 99 to 2001, right? You would have your York Hall matches, if you will, on there, right? Your big matches, but you'd also have William Regal versus X Pac for the European title. You would have
Mm.
you'd have Matt Hardy versus Christian for the European title. William Regal versus Chris Jericho. You'd have these guys who were on the undercard competing for those titles on the pay per views, because if you put them, it's all about the surroundings. So yeah,
Yeah.
this could be a 229 match, as you've said, right? And that's fine. But if you put the right heat behind this, but also put them in the 229, put them in York Hall. It's not a York Hall match, but when it happens in York Hall, it's a York Hall match, whatever way you want to
Mm-hmm.
slice it, because it's happening there in York Hall. So I think that's the first really important thing. The second thing as well for me is that when you put people in those venues, it does elevate them, right? Because
Yep.
it makes them seem like a bigger deal, because you're conditioned these shows are bigger. I think that match for the number one contendership for the tag team titles did an amazing job for David Francisco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just being
Agreed.
in there helped elevate him that bit more. He's already doing a wonderful job of that by himself, right? But put him in that surrounding, right? He's ticked York Hall off the list, so like he's a York Hall wrestler now, and that surrounding those people brings them up together. I kind of liken that to when Edge and Christian, the Hardys and the Dudleys used to tear up that tag team division. Well, these are your pillars of that tag team division, if you will. What's happened as well a lot over the last few years, especially with the advent of AEW, is banger, 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 top level, top level, top level, that we've kind of forgotten a little bit. So last year AEW did World's End, and maybe not the best match too, but I remember Julia Hart had a match for Abaddon, wasn't received in the best way, right? And it wasn't a very good match. However, you take in two undercard wrestlers and go, actually, I know that they need to be put in this scenario so we can lift them. And I think that's what's happening here, or that's what it feels like to me, is we go, no, we're giving these guys the opportunity, but we need to put them in this scenario. If we want people to take them seriously, in that sense of being going up a level, we need to give them the surroundings to go up that level. And we've had the stuff where Shah's been at the Gordon Craig but hasn't been able to like wrestle, but he's appeared there. I think this is the next bit. And look, we know Shah's credentials, but it's fair to say that with how Rev Pro's gone the last few years and him coming back in, he's probably having to build his reputation up, because there's probably a level of people who don't know who he is. They just think he's the guy that went to work for NXT for a bit and they understand, but he's an older face. So got to build him back up for those people. But and he said on our podcast that to a degree there was the happy to be here kind of style as well. And I think you can see it in his nutrition. You can see how he's dialed himself in, right? I'm just looking at the picture now. The shape that lad is in, right?
Yeah,
He is in
nuts.
tremendous shape. And I think you kind of seen all these things where it's like, I need to bet on myself again. And that's why I think we're going down that route. But I think that is properly where the East End Butcher properly comes back out. I don't think it's going to be, don't think you're going to see a turn as such, but I think that is how that match is going to go down. And I know we're going down. Look, I'm sitting here talking about a match that hasn't even been announced yet. Okay, so it might not even happen, but that's what the good, great storytelling that they're doing here with the two of these guys is leading me down that road. And if it doesn't happen like that, it's fine. We said it plenty of times. Trust in the process. We've been.
But that's like the joy of like watching wrestling with as much attention to detail as we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you love talking yourself into these scenarios, and then if they don't happen, that's also cool, because as long as what does happen is cool, like we love getting it wrong, because it's all part of like this universe where you get to explore it.
Yeah.
And it's,
Absolutely.
if the only thing that is ever frustrating, and I never get this with RevPro, I genuinely don't. I've had it with other companies where you feel like they're leading you in a direction that's going to be really cool, and then they pivot and they go in a different direction, which isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Or, in the one of the many reasons why I stopped watching WWE back in sort of like what, 2019, 2020 was they'd lead you down, they'd give you some little details to something and then just stop doing it. We never did find out why who was it that used to stare into the mirror. I can't think of his name. It used to be in the tag team with Zack Ryder.
The only one I can
I
think
think
of
it,
is Kurt
I think
Hawkins.
yeah, he was also in a tag team with Kurt Hawkins. Mojo
Oh,
Rawley. Mojo Rawley.
oh
Why
God.
was Mojo Rawley staring into the mirror? Why did he have the? Why
The
was the
bullet.
always there in the
Yeah.
mirror? And you're like, oh, I can't wait to find out. And then, or
Yeah.
Eric Rowan and the Spider, which was
Oh God. Yeah, I forgot
possibly
about that.
the least exciting option of what's in his cage. But
Mm.
yeah, do you know what I mean? Like we're talking about like a silly example there. That's the
Yeah.
only time where it goes wrong, where you think something's going to be really cool and it turns out being a bit flat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm with
that's
you.
not going to happen. Yet.
Yeah. And look, let's just we kind of bookended that that story there, but just want to kind of shout as well. Mills and Jay Joshua, I think, are coming on really great as a tag team,
Oh,
and just
massively.
yeah, every
They
time
look
Jay
class.
Joshua, yeah,
They look
Jay,
class together. Like, and there's a really small detail that you'd only know from being there live that I really liked. Mills came out to do merch afterwards
mm-hmm.
and is there selling his t-shirts and doing what Mills normally does. Jay just sat next to him, just sat there with his feet up next to him, like because they're a team,
Mm-hmm.
because they're mates. And he
Yeah,
weren't selling anything, and he had a few chats with fans, but it was generally just because Mills is there, Joshua's there. I like that
nice,
because
yeah,
they have a dynamic which is really convincing and believable.
yeah,
They
and
look
that's
like
it, right?
they even like really small details, like when they made their entrance, one went one way, one the other way, and when they crossed paths, they just did like a little fist pump, little
Mm-hmm.
like lean into each other's shoulder, and it looked really natural. Like that's what they do every time they see each other. Not like, oh, this is what we should do so people think we're tight as a unit and have never rehearsed it. Like it just looked like the most natural thing for them to do. And it's small details like that matter. And then like once they get in the ring, they're
Yeah,
just two of the best around on there. Like
yeah,
Jay
they,
Joshua is an absolute revelation. Um, he to be as consistent as he is so impressive because he's someone who came into Rev Pro like completely cold for me in the sense
mm-hmm.
like I didn't know him. And I'm like excited to watch him, but I've never seen him before. And he's just every time he's in the ring now, I'm like every card, I'm like, oh, I wonder who Jay Joshua's fighting.
Yeah,
Like, oh, what's next? His music comes on, you're like, oh, it's gonna be good. Like shit's gonna like get turned up. And I've
Jay,
said it all year. Mills is the MVP of Rev Pro this year. Like he is
yeah,
the most consistent wrestler. He might not have been in the biggest stories and he might not have been in all the main events, but his matches have been so consistent. Him,
yeah.
Oku, and Jacobs are like have been on another level this year.
Absolutely, they have. Jay Joshua is starting to get the Zozaya vibe for me as well. Like you just know, whatever you give him, he's going to absolutely smash it out of the park, and that's exciting,
Yeah.
especially to have like on all levels of the card. Um,
Should we
speaking
bounce
about
through the next two and get so we can explore the Zozaya and Leon more?
yeah,
I
exactly,
think
and I
you hit it on the head pretty well earlier. An angle disguised as a match.
yes, yeah, and I'm not keen when we do that. Like I get why we do it, and that's not a Rev Pro thing. That's just a wrestling thing in general. If I'm looking forward to a match and it's an angle disguised as a match, like it is what it is. Again, they've got me intrigued with Ricky, because at no stage this year have they gone in the direction that I think I would have gone with Ricky? Right? I'm not saying that what I'm saying is right, but just like it's at like every stage, it seems to be the one where it's like what I would have done or expected to have been done has gone, nope, we're not doing that. I'm like, huh. And it's leaving me like going, okay, I want to see where it goes, right? So it's not the kind where I go, like you said earlier, where they just switch and go, nope, I'm going this direction instead. It's not felt like that at all, but it's just like I can't put my finger on where I think it's going whatsoever.
Yeah, I get that. It's funny actually. I loved this. I absolutely loved it. Because so I hate squash matches.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely hate them. I feel ultimately, especially when it's what I would call an American TV match, squash match. Jobber's entrance barely gets a name for the opponent. If they do even say their name, you don't remember it 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
They get completely annihilated. They like every single strike knocks them for six. Like, yet when that same wrestler's in a match with somebody else doing the exact same strikes, it's not having that effect. So for me, it doesn't make the other person look really strong. It just makes the victim look really weak.
Yeah.
But this wasn't an American squash match. This was Jordan Said, full entrance, full, everything that you'd expect. Of course, it had to be a full entrance. It's live. You can't do a jobber's entrance in front of people unless it's filmed. You knew the character dynamics were very clear. You've got Contender very early on in his Rev Pro run versus Ricky Knight Jr., former undisputed heavyweight champion. Ricky's always had it, like really canon, really like part of his whole story that he's an incredible striker. It's very publicly known that he attends a boxing gym. He is someone
Dave,
who is.
Why did you bring that up?
I didn't mean it like that. I genuinely didn't mean it like that. But as I said it, I was like, yeah, that's not a clever reference. But like, it is publicly known that he is into his boxing. If you follow his Instagram and stuff like that, like both him and his dad are like always posting stuff about boxing, and then having like boxing matches on weekends where he's not got wrestling. And then obviously, yes, that image was from a boxing gym, which wasn't a clever little inclusion of it, just an organic one. And he's a striker. We've seen it before. We've seen it when he starts throwing haymakers. You're like, oh, this could be a knockout. Like, that's not new. What's new is the fact that he just didn't bother with any of the locking up, didn't bother with any of the wrestling, and was just like, I'm just going to knock this lad out.
Yeah.
And it worked so well. Jordan sold it brilliantly. Doesn't hurt Jordan in the slightest, because the whole role of a contender is that you are absolutely fighting from underneath, but at the very, very bottom. You've got to work your way up from the very bottom, and that's exactly what this does. It's no different like when Conor Mills did the same to Dynamite Lee Dawson in Coventry. The only difference is this was a more effective squash because Jordan literally got nothing in. I love the stuff with Dave Bradshaw afterwards. I'm not sure how well the delivery of the line came out, because there were a few people at the show saying, what did he say? But I don't know how well it came up on the live feed. But when Dave said, what's next for you? He just said, home.
Home. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's it. So I like it because it's like Ricky's whole year has been built around, we're just waiting to get through Oku and Jacobs before Ricky's in that main event scene. That's obviously like talking shoot, but even in kayfabe, his story has been, you're like the gatekeeper of Rev Pro. Anyone that comes into Rev Pro wrestles you, from James Ellis to Mike DeVecchio to Jay Joshua to whoever else. But your record stands up that when we're next looking for a number one contender, you're going to be right at the top of it. So as soon as Jacobs is champion, they book Oku versus Ricky Knight Jr., but Ricky lost. And now suddenly it's like, well, what am I doing here? it is not going right for Ricky Knight Jr. and Rev Pro. I love how when he came out, he didn't do any crowd service. He did not walk around the ring. He didn't stand up and do his, like the old kind of
Randy Orton.
the Randy Orton pose that he does. He just got in the ring.
Yeah.
And it was really telling. I think it would be. I don't want him now to be included in the Coventry weekend.
Yeah.
So before I was like, I really want to see Roy Knight, Ricky Knight, and Zach Knight as a trio. I'd love to see that. Never seen those guys tag together. Never seen Roy Knight wrestle before. Loads of time for all of them. Love Ricky, love Zach. Would love to meet Roy. Right now, I don't want to, because now I'm like, no, I really like the idea of we don't see Ricky for a month, and even maybe on the next 229, don't book him. Maybe have him turn up, or have him there, but maybe not in a match, or have him in a match and him come out and try and do the same thing again. Just, I like the idea of it being a bit unsure of, does Ricky still want Rev Pro? Does Ricky still want this? Does he still feel a part of this? What is it that he's unhappy with? And then either this could lead to an out-and-out babyface turn or an out-and-out heel turn, and either could work really well. He sits in between so well, but I feel like next year is going to be built more around him one way or the other. And it's just a case of what they can pull off better.
Yeah, I tell you what I'm thinking, and this is, again, as we're talking, because it's what I love about our chats, right? As we're talking, things bounce in my head. I don't know where it's a bit too sports entertainerish, opposed to kind of style Rev Pro do. I wouldn't have Ricky back until about February. I'd literally, he's going home. And I'd have him appear and make a massive impact at some point. You want to fucking do it, like, stick the balaclava on, have him dressed in all black, have him pull off the mask, like, after attack it, like, do something big, a statement. And then I'd have Ricky win the Revolution Rumble. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Do you know what is really funny, actually? You say that, and my first thought is, the only problem with that with an independent wrestling company is that's a lot of weekends that Ricky's not getting paid to work for a pro, or he's not getting booked. But actually, when you say that, there's not that many shows between now and February.
No.
If they keep the same sort of schedule, but they've kept for the last 2 years, they've only booked one show in January in 2024 and 2023. I can't remember 2022, but I think there was 2 in 2022. There was a 229 at the very start of January and high stakes with Ospreay and Oku at the end of January on like the 29th. So actually, for him to not be on another Rev Pro show, he's only missing like 7 shows, which is still a lot, but it's viable. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. That's the thing, right? That's what I liked about this 229 show. Every single match had me coming out of it being like, ooh, interested to see what's next. Same as the next match with Charlie Sterling and Cheeseburger, because like this was, like, I'm literally like, pull back the curtain. The minute that match graphic dropped, I text you and Spike a picture of the match graphic and just said, here is the most random Rev Pro match graphic we're going to see all year. Cheeseburger versus Charlie Sterling. So fucking random. I like that. I like random. As long as it's not random for, like, if this was literally, what would have been more random is if it was Cheeseburger versus, I don't know, Danny White. Danny White.
I know
Danny Jones.
Yeah. I did the same thing.
Like, oh, okay. Danny Jones has just beaten Cheeseburger. I don't know where this goes next. The fact that it was Charlie Sterling's involved with JJ Gow means it wasn't as random as it looks. It's only the fact that Charlie's not been involved with Rev Pro much this year, just these last few weeks. But it did what it needed to do, because Charlie's in that position. It's a similar position that Golden Boy Santos is in, where you're a big guy and you're a big, strong, like, you should be a bully. You should be dominant, but you don't have the wins to back it up. So with Charlie, he got embarrassed by JJ Gow in Sheffield when JJ kind of like chased him off. And then JJ pinned him in Southampton, and he was further embarrassed there. So this had to be a Charlie Sterling win, and it was. But I also felt like the performance was important. It needed to be a big Charlie Sterling win.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't be like they wrestled 15 minutes back and forth and then Charlie just edged him in like a 55-45% split. This was like 75% Charlie, 25% Cheeseburger. That's what it needed to be. And Cheeseburger, like, I really enjoyed him. He was entertaining. I'd like to see him come back. Like, it was good fun. But it was all about Charlie, this, and it made him look like a monster. And it's got me thinking, like, I want what I want. Not everything can be at York Hall. Not everything can be at Uprising. But this is a story that started in Sheffield. I want this to be heavily featured in the Sheffield show that is the Go Home to Uprising. And I'd love it to be like JJ Gow versus Charlie Sterling in like a street fight. And either stick it on in the main event or stick it on in the semi-main like Francisco and Shah did, or stick it on in the fourth spot where Mike DeVecchio and RKJ did their 2 out of 3 falls,
Mm-hmm.
like one of those prominent spots.
Yeah.
Just let them batter the piss out of each other and give the people of Sheffield this really cool moment before Christmas of like, you know, like everybody loves the fun wrestling where it's brawling all over the place and they're pulling weapons out. And it's like, we don't get it very often. And I like that because it's so easily overdone.
Yeah.
But this is a storyline where it would work well for it. It's not like the Francisco and Shah blood feud where it's like this really violent and almost uncomfortable no disqualification match. It would be more like a fun one. You know, it's almost at Christmas. Let's have them like, you know, like bloody stick a JJ Gow can stick a Christmas hat on Charlie Sterling with his big beard and his long hair, and he can look like Santa, and then twat him over the edge of a kendo stick. Something fun. Like, do you know what I mean? Like funny, but at the same time, if this is still a serious contest, it's been built like a serious thing, but it can have a bit of Christmas to it. Like, I'd really like that. I think that would be like a nice flavour for it. JJ coming out and being the hero was really cool. Like he's so over in the 229. It's insane.
Yeah.
I think he gets as loud a reaction in the 229 as he gets in Southampton. Which, bearing in mind, he's like, you know, he is the heart and soul. He started off as the heart and soul of Portsmouth and Southampton. Like, that's where that all came from, right? Mm-hmm. But like, there is a big section of the 229 who will literally sing every word of his song when he comes out. Yeah. So, like, really liked it. It was all really good. At this point of the show, I probably felt a bit like you did, where I was like, yeah, it's been good so far. Like, it's been entertaining. I'm glad I came. This was worth my 20 quid, you know? Like, it's been a good wrestling show. And then Leon and Zozaya came out, and you're just like, fuck me, why are you not charging me double for this?
Yeah, that was an insane match. The biggest things that I can say in the favour of this match, right? So there was so much that kind of goes against what I'm normally like in wrestling, right? So, and again, one of the things I hate is I hate ultra long matches. Mm-hmm. I hate, and I'm not saying that 30 minutes is ultra long, but I think sometimes when
it's long, though, isn't it? That is long.
But what I appreciate about RevPro, actually, watching more, is that they get so much out of shorter match lengths. So you don't have, not everything has to be a 20 minutes, right? Like they get so much out of a 13.5-minute match that I honestly cannot say the same about Progress. When I've gone there, every time I've seen the match around the 8 to 15 minutes, I've always gone, it could have gone to second gear more there. And that's just the style of what their promotion is. Whereas in RevPro, I feel that no matter how long it's booked for, I get what I need from it. So sometimes having these 20-minute plus matches, especially at the end of the first half, kind of be like, oh, right, okay. Time flew by, right? I did not realise it was gone 25 minutes at this point till I heard Francesca say 5 minutes remaining. And then I was like, oh, they've just hit another one of the things that I really hate. And we've had this discussion But I hate when I know how long is going to be left in the match, right? Which plays into the match that's got announced for Uprising. Again, what I like. I feel like I'm sounding really negative this podcast. It's not meant to. It's just what I like and what jives with me with wrestling. And then I was like, well, it's obviously going to be a draw then, isn't it? And what I found really interesting was Francesca said 4 minutes remaining, 3 minutes remaining. I was like, I don't remember any company ever doing that until it gets to 1 minute remaining. So what that did for me is it made me go, oh, they're obviously giving them time cues for a reason so they can get. And I thought, maybe this isn't going to end up in a draw. So actually,
what like 28 and a half minutes or something like that.
So I was like, what? So for me, whenever I hear an announcer saying 5 minutes remaining, and you see it all the time in AEW, it's a draw, right? And that takes me out of it because I go, oh, right, I know what's happening now. So I thought it was really clever the way they did this because having those 4, 3, 2, 1, if they did this again, while I go, oh well, last time they did that. But if they did 4, 3, 2, 1, then someone gets a pin, I'd be like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here. And so I really liked that element of it at the end. So it was a match that just flew by for me. And all those little things which I normally would be like, oh, it's not, didn't matter. That's how good this was. And they managed it in a really great way, both from a booking element, putting the match together, and the action in the ring. Because fuck me, those two lads have chemistry. I've been lucky enough to have been live for 2 of their matches. One in Riot Cabaret, one in the initial one in Rev Pro. And it was one of those ones I remember when it got announced for Germany. I was like, oh, great. I'm not going to have to go and see that one live. Because, again, the completionist nature in me wants to see them all. And I was just like, so when it got announced for the 229, I didn't get the FOMO at first. I'd be like, oh, I need to see this carry on. But I got the FOMO afterwards. I got post FOMO. Like, I was just like, why did I not go to it? Was insane. So good.
I've got a few bits. One, there's a trope that they didn't do, and I'm really glad they didn't. I hate the trope of when you know it's going to be a time limit draw, you think it's going to be a time limit draw, and someone just hits their finisher just as the draw is announced.
Mm-hmm.
At 30 minutes, they were still swinging for the punches.
Yeah.
That feeds into the fact that 30 minutes is nowhere near enough, hence them needing a 60-minute Iron Man match.
Yeah.
A 60-minute Iron Man match in York Hall is something I'm so interested to see. Because there, on one hand, there's a part of me that's like, this is going to be fucking amazing. And there's another part of me that's like, 60 minutes is a really long time to keep me interested in one match. I remember Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, 60-minute Iron Man match. 2 of my favourite wrestlers of all time. So fucking boring. Like, I did not enjoy it at all. Because there are such long stretches of them not... like of them having to kind of like just drag it out a bit. Mm-hmm. So I'm really fascinated from a kind of like I hate saying this because it makes me sound proper poncy, but like an analytical point of view, you know, like how I like to sit and study it. I like to sit and watch all the details. So I'm really fascinated from that side, but I am also confident they'll deliver something really good. It's interesting listening to Andy Quildan talk before about time cues. There was a spell in Rev Pro in the past where they did 5 minutes gone, 10 minutes gone, 15 minutes gone, 20 minutes gone, and people didn't like it. So they stopped doing it. But if you then only do it when it's leading to a time limit draw, you have that problem of, oh, it's going to be a draw. Mm-hmm. And I had a mixed reaction around me. I was sitting with a lad I've not met before, who was really lovely, and we got on really, really well. And then Mark Roffey was a couple of people away from me. And in front of me, I had Catherine and Charlie and AJ and like a good mix of people that I've met before. So there's lots of like chatting going on in between matches and like little whispers of like, oh, fuck, I think this is where it's going. The time limit draw got called probably around the 20-minute mark when I think it was Mark, was like, this is going quite long. Do you reckon it's going to be a draw? Prior to that, I'd said this is surely going to set up a match at Uprising
Mm.
because their first match was so good, you need to run it back in front of more people.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that 200 people get to watch Zozaya versus Leon Slater. Now let's get 1,200 people to watch it. So I was like, I'm not sure how it's going to go. And then, maybe Leon's going to win, but in slightly, pulling the tights or something like that. Maybe Zozaya is going to get a win, but it be one where it's like by count out or something like that. And they're not going to be happy with it. Maybe a double count out, something like that. And then we kind of came to the time limit draw. For me, what I personally think would be a fair balance between people don't like time limit calls, how long Rev Pro matches tend to be, and making the most of it, would be if any time a match hits 15 minutes, Francesca says 15 minutes gone, 15 minutes remaining. Then again at 20 minutes, again at 25, and then you can count down to 30. Because most Rev Pro matches don't hit 15 minutes. So the vast majority of matches, probably 75% of matches, you'll never get a time call in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then of the ones that do, the number of matches that go above 15 minutes but less than 20 is quite a big percentage. So for those matches, you'd get one time call and nothing else. And that would get people used to hearing a time call and not immediately thinking draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then my next thing would be have the odd match go 21 minutes. Have the odd match, and I'm literally talking about the odd match, like one every 6 months, go 26 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you've then got that, we've hit 25 minutes, this is going to a draw.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
It doesn't. And it doesn't need to be like, make it go 29 minutes and 59 seconds.
Fucking
like,
hate
no, you don't need that.
Yeah.
Just cut it off 3-4 minutes before the 30 minutes. Because that establishes a precedent that when you hear those time calls, it doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Except the one time it does.
Exactly.
And if you don't like the time calls, fair play, you only hear them in this like 15% of matches. Maybe 25% of matches you hear one time call, 15% of matches you hear 2 time calls, and 5% of matches you hear more than 2 time calls.
Yeah.
This year, how many matches have gone over 25 minutes? A couple, literally a couple.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean that's personally, I think that solves all of those like little nagging gripes.
I would suggest so, and like I said, I liked how they did it, right? So I'm the sort of person that hates that because it really takes me out of it, because I want, and this is where for me, you actually said I convinced myself for years I loved that Brett and Shawn match, right? When I was sort of late teens, early 20s, I was convinced I loved my favorite matches. My favorite match was Iron Man matches, right? I loved the Rock and Triple H. I loved that one. I was an Iron match. Give me a 1 hour Iron Man match. Now I'm like, no, it was boring as shit.
Mate, do you know what it is? It's this is going to be controversial. It's Nevermind by Nirvana.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
It's Nevermind by Nirvana. Nevermind by Nirvana is this iconic album. People love it. And I'm sure at the time it was amazing to experience. But when you listen back to it now and you actually go song by song, judging each song on its own merits, it's not as good as 10 by Pearl Jam. It's not as good as Dirt by Alice in Chains. It's not as good as Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. Yes, Come As You Are is fucking insane. Yes, Smells Like Teen Spirit's great. Yes, there are other songs on the album which are really good. But not all 11 songs are of the standard that people hold them to be, because it was like an iconic moment. The fact that Brett and Shawn, the 2 best wrestlers in America at the time, wrestled for 60 minutes is iconic.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, when you sit and watch it and you listen to it, sit and listen to Nirvana's Nevermind from the first minute to the 50th minute, you will get bored after about track 5. watch Brett versus Sean, you won't be engaged in it for the entire 60 minutes.
Once we finish recording, I'm gonna do both tonight. I'm gonna watch Brett versus Sean, followed by listening to Nevermind by Nirvana.
And then I'll get a load of like voice notes from you saying, "No, you're wrong. They're fucking brilliant."
Yeah, no, I don't think my mind will ever be changed on that Brett and Sean match for sure. And that's what is with me for Iron Man matches. It is the knowing how long it's going to last, like you said, to keeping your attention side of it. But I also know these lads are great at what they do. Yeah. So this is going to be one of those ones that it's not going to draw me into York Hall that close to Christmas, right? But it is going to be one that I'm going to be very happy when I'm sitting at home watching on RevProOnDemand.com and getting my snacks ready and going, right, let's watch this one because I know it's going to be a great match. And you know what? If it happens that despite being how great they are, just me being not a massive fan of Iron Man matches, I can always just go and get more snacks or something like that. Whereas I don't have to worry about that at York Hall. So I'm interested to see where this one goes. And again, when we get there, where that match goes as well.
Yeah.
So Dave, I suppose we're on the business end and we've already gone 10 minutes longer than we said we were going to go tonight. So
10 minutes past the hour.
10 minutes past the hour. So
to be fair, I think this second half is similar to the first half, right?
I was going to say
a main event which is full of story, similar to the trios match that opened the card. You've got a banger match like Zozaya and Leon in Ethan versus Oku.
So good.
And then you've got a couple of matches in between that extended stories the same way RKJ and Charlie Sterling did.
Yeah. Yeah, so the tag, we already touched on the tag match earlier. Luke versus Golden Boy, I thought was a good match. I thought
it was Golden Boy's best match, to be fair.
Absolutely, yeah. They both gelled so well.
Performance.
Yeah,
I think him and Luke, like they hit each other hard, and it was a really entertaining one.
They did, yeah.
There's a detail to it I absolutely loved. I don't know if you saw this. David Francisco posted earlier tonight a picture of him beating up Luke Jacobs, and his caption was, "If you're surprised to see me attacking the champion, you've not been paying attention." And do you remember when we interviewed him on here, or when he was a guest on here and we did the episode with him? Mm-hmm. We said, at Global Wars, who would you like to face? He was like, the IWGP champion. Why would I pick anybody other than the IWGP champion?
Yeah.
And it's exactly this, right? Golden Boy versus Luke Jacobs is a perfect match for Luke Jacobs to have in keeping him fresh and ready and challenged before he faces Oku next month.
Yeah.
And Francisco uses it as his opportunity to be like, okay, let's put my head and my face in the champion's mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's exactly what you'd expect him to do with the precedent that he set for himself. And I really enjoyed that. I'd be well up for seeing Young Guns versus Francisco and Santos. I'd be well up for seeing Francisco versus Jacobs.
And you know what feels like a great place to do that as well, right? Given and we'll touch on in a minute. We'll touch on the Michael Oku match, where we think that might be going as well. But if they are keeping Oku semi-babyface right now, you know what would feel like a really great place to do that Jacobs Francisco match in Southampton.
I do. In Southampton.
Do it in Southampton because you then get a bit more...
2 shows time once you're past the Trios tournament, right?
Exactly.
Trios tournament, 229 Southampton.
Yeah, so do that at Southampton where you know Luke is going to get a bit more heel heat, even though he should be the babyface in that match. Yep. Well and truly, get a bit more heel hit because people want Francisco. And then you could even have where something happens and Michael Oku comes out and does a save because he thinks Jacobs is going too far.
Yeah,
on David Francisco.
Do Young Guns versus Francisco and Santos at the 229 to set up a Jacobs versus Francisco singles match in Southampton.
Yeah.
And this is beautiful episodic story, right?
And that's
this is the sort of thing that you see from a national TV company, like from an AEW, from a WWE, from a TNA, where they have a weekly show, and like we get it because RevPro is effectively that. It's not on ITV, it's on RevPro on demand.
Yeah.
Like
RevPro has all the best things about being an indie.
Yeah.
And it has all the best things about being like a full blown weekly wrestling company, right?
Yep. And it also doesn't have all the shit that comes with being. I mean, obviously, the one thing is it doesn't have all the money that comes from being on TV, but it also doesn't have all the limitations. Like, they're not constricted to the show must run no longer than 2 hours. There must be advert breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you have to have matches which have little quiet spells whilst we're in adverts. Like, there's none of those restrictions which can make TV wrestling feel quite rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything can breathe in RevPro.
Yeah,
and I love that. Same thing with New Japan. New Japan never feels rushed. Everything else does for me and what I like to watch. I really enjoyed. I liked the Jacobs and Santos match was everything it needed to be. Should we talk about the Revolution tag and leave Oku till last?
No, let's go Oku next, and let's give the ladies the due they deserve by being
the
last ones on.
That wasn't to dismiss them in any way,
no, not at all.
The fact that they headlined.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be a nice one to end. So let's go Oku and Ethan Allen, because we've just spoken about Oku a moment ago, and spoke about where he might be going. So I thought this was a wonderfully brutal match, right? So I said to you off camera, and I think I've also put this on Twitter as well, that when I was watching it, I was kind of half paying attention. I was prepping Sunday roast. I was cooking the roast potatoes and getting them all chopped up. So I'm kind of watching. And when I saw him come out, I thought, oh, it looks like he's taking like a blood capsule or something, because it looked like there was quite a lot coming from his mouth. And I thought, I know it's probably not something that happens a lot in this kind, but I thought we've been conditioned so much to how much Ethan Allen is like a really hard hitting, nasty bastard, like kind of piss and vinegar, right? So it would make sense if you're going to do something like we've often said that with Michael Oku, he's the kind of guy, his superpower is how much he can get beat up and still come out of a win. Okay, so you've got all of that going on. So I was like, oh, that's clearly what he's done. And then throughout, my wife was going, I think he's done something to his nose. And then I started seeing all the tweets coming through from the people that were there live.
So much blood, man.
And I was like,
so much blood.
Yeah, then it became very clear when I came and actually watched it and you saw it continue, and I was like, oh shit, that is.
And it literally happened at the very, very start of the match. Like, I haven't watched it back yet to know like exactly how long in, but it felt like it was within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was very quick in.
There's this moment of like looking at him and literally like the blood is like gushing and it's going everywhere. Like Dynamite Lee Dawson's running around with like blue towel trying to mop it up because it's like such like, you know, like a hygiene hazard. And I'm literally looking at it thinking, fuck, are they just gonna have to write this off? Are they just gonna have to call an audible and end it? Because this is like Oku needs to go to hospital. He's got broken nose. And he wrestled for like 15 more minutes. The match went 17 minutes.
It did.
And it was the best Ethan Allen match since he's been back by distance. You can argue that his best match was against Oku and Zozaya in Southampton with Luke Jacobs, but there are so many. There's 4 people in that match.
Yeah.
So as whilst yes, it's a great match and it was an outstanding match, there are so many other parts which made it outstanding, other than just Ethan. And that's not to take anything away from him because he was essential as any of the other 4 people in it. But this was very much an Ethan Allen versus Michael Oku singles match. There were a lot of people there, like me, that had a lot of expectation on this because this has never happened before. And ever since Ethan Allen returned, this is all I've wanted to watch. And it delivered in spades.
It did.
And all the while, Oku's doing it with what I assume has now been confirmed as a broken nose, if not he's got away with it.
Yeah.
Because just Michael Oku is even better than I thought he was. I used to think he was really good. Then I thought he was like the best in the country and like the best in Europe. And now I'm genuinely like, he is legitimately one of the best wrestlers in the world.
He's world class, yeah.
Like, he genuinely is world class, and I don't use that word very often. I've grown up as a football fan all my life, and I've hated how many footballers have been labelled world class when they're not. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are very few to be world class, there can't be that many of you in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No one in the world, I genuinely don't think, no one's coming to my mind that can do what Oku does so well. When you think that 99% of Michael Oku matches are him getting beaten up loads and then him turning it around and getting the win in the end. Yet that sounds like I'm slagging him off. But what I'm saying is he does that in such a compelling way, in so many different ways, that although that is generally the formula, you're always lost in what he's doing.
So
sensational.
I remember that one of you guys mentioned that to me one time. We were like, about Oak, and I was like, what? I didn't know it's studied like you said. I was like, shit, you are right. And that's not in a, like, this isn't in a way, like you said, not slagging him off, going, oh, that's it, he's got a formula and just follows it. It's like, I just was so brought into what was going on that I never actually picked up on what was happening, because he just draws you into it. One of the things I found really interesting was one of the matches I said I thought would feature on my best, like when I'm getting my short list for greatest matches of the second half of the year, one of the matches I thought that would be up there as it's not going to make it, but it was very good, an honourable mention, was Connor Mills versus Ethan Allen from 12-year anniversary. This match might legitimately be on that shortlist for contention. This is not one of the...
I think this, like, personally, I think this was a level above that one.
Yeah, so do I, and I think this was just shows as well how much Ethan has grown with comfortability and Rev Process coming back, because that match with Connor Mills, it was a great match for what it was, and we said as well, Connor Mills has been the standard this year almost, the standard of consistency. So this isn't faint praise when we say this was like, that was a really great match, but this is a level above. Like, it really was. And what I found the most compelling part of it, right? They've booked it into Rev Pro canon that if you pin the number one contender, or if you beat the number one contender, you are now the number one contender. Okay?
Yeah.
So we had that with Lizzie and Danny.
So fuck, if Ethan had beaten Oku, what would that have meant?
Exactly. You've got the main event of Uprising, which is what I also found interesting, because I was like, shit, it'll be interesting to see, because Andy is someone who's very consistent with his booking, right? Yep. So, and I think he would know you can't just run that a few weeks ago. Like, obviously there'd have been some schmoz kind of way of getting back there, I'm sure. But that's another thing. Like, if Michael Oku has to take the loss, like maybe you set out down the line again, well, they've stopped the match, so it's a stoppage, therefore, well, let's see who the better man is in a couple of weeks, and then it builds up to that match. Okay. But it was that kind of, that extra element for me, where I was like, which also made me go, oh, this is when the blood thing, I was like, maybe it's not, but then it became very clear that no, it's not. This is just, again, overthinking, but it's those breadcrumb stories that we talk about. I just thought it was awesome, but the end of the match in particular, I don't know how it came across in the venue, but how it came across on TV, it came across again very heel-tinged Amira and Michael Oku.
Yeah, I get that. I think the blood kind of, and the amount of blood there was, justified Amira and Oku being exactly as they were.
Yeah,
but I've always felt that there is a real shadow to everything Oku and Amira do. Like, they are like the absolute perfect babyface couple. There's an absolute dark side to both of them, and it's like hiding in plain sight all of the time.
Yeah,
which I actually loved. There was a moment where Ethan punched Oku. Oku was like propped up in the corner, and he just punched him like square in the gut. and it was one of the most violent things I've watched all year. Like, it was just like, it was one of those, like those moments where you're watching it and you just react completely spontaneously in the moment. Well, like those moments where if someone was watching, if there was a camera on me, you'd just be like, Mark. Like where you're literally just sitting there watching, and just like, fucking hell, like hand over your mouth or something like that. And it's completely like involuntary. That's what that was. Like, it was just like, if he'd hit him in the head, it would have been like, you wouldn't have reacted at all. But it was like a punch in the gut. Wrestlers don't really do that very often.
No.
But everybody's been punched in the gut. Everyone knows what it feels like to be punched in the stomach from like an older brother or something when you were a kid. And you're like, I remember my brother punching me so hard in the gut that I couldn't get off the floor for like 5 minutes. I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And like, my brother's not Ethan Allen. Like, that is just, I loved it, mate. I want to see. By the time I was going to say, by the time I'm done with Rev Pro, by the time Michael Oku and Ethan Allen are done with Rev Pro, because I think I'll be watching it longer than they'll be wrestling. That's what I like to think. Yeah. By the time those boys are done, I want there to have been 4 or 5 matches between them, spread out nicely over several years, because they've got so much chemistry.
They really do. They really do. I just thought it was a wonderful match, and interested to see again where this one goes with Oku and Amira, but also where things go with Ethan, because he's in such a.
For me, I want him to be cruiserweight champion whilst Luke is heavyweight champion. I really want that. I don't want Caven to lose his title soon, so keeping him away from Caven is quite good. Mm-hmm. But eventually, I want that to be where it goes.
Yeah, same. Sorry, I also, before we go on to the last match, saw that apparently Donovan Dijak is going to be having a tour of the UK and Europe in 2025. Cool. So if we can please run that back with Robbie X, that would be much
I'd love to see it live personally. That was the one match at Summer Sizzler that I felt I got FOMO for. Obviously I got FOMO for all of it. And the James Castle celebration was like the biggest moment for me that I felt I missed on. But this match was like, oh, I wish I'd seen that. Like, I loved it.
Yeah, it was so good. And speaking of matches being so good, the main event,
cool, wasn't it?
This was really, really cool. There was a lot I loved about this. Looking at it now, I can't believe it went nearly 27 minutes. Right?
Yeah, they just didn't feel like it at all.
It didn't feel like it at all.
It felt like probably one of the quicker Revolution tag matches.
Yeah, it really did.
I'd say that's a compliment, because you don't ever want to be like clock watching during a wrestling match. You don't want to be feeling the time. It flew by.
Yeah, so this was another match. Like I said to you, like there's 2 matches on this card that have gone like longer than I normally find that I kind of start going, okay. And both of them flew by for me, which is like tremendous in itself, because it shows that they're just keeping you invested. It was a match that featured 8 women in the main event of a 229.
Isn't that incredible?
Great stuff. And that's where, again, we know that Andy's not the guy who will just put women in the main event because it's the right thing to do. We know he won't put tag teams in the main event because it's the right thing. Like, he will judge people on merit. Judging people on merit, what I loved is that Chantal Jordan, second show in years in Rev Pro, and one of the matches is a main event match.
Yeah, big moment for her.
Big for her.
Also, like, there was a moment at the start where everyone was getting like the crowd were cheering for Danny Luna. You know, Danny Luna doesn't die. Yes, she can. Anita Vaughan, I can't think of her catchphrase. It's gone from the top of my head. I'm not going to try and think of it because it's just going to annoy me. But she's got like this catchphrase that everybody knows, and like she was probably the first one. In fact, she actually got the loudest reaction.
Yeah.
And there's not an obvious one for Chantal Jordan, but everybody cheered for Chantal Jordan, and not because, I don't know, maybe some people were doing it because it would have been rude not to, but like legitimately because she's class. Like, she is top class. The fella I was sitting next to, he said to me quite early doors, kind of just to introduce himself. We said hello. He said it was his first Rev Pro show, and at the 229. He'd never been to the 229 before. He went to the Copper Box. He used to go to wrestling back in the day, and he's kind of like trying to get back into it. And
Nice.
so because of that, like he'd ask me questions throughout the show. He'd be like, "So like, what's the deal with these two?" And I'd kind of fill him in, and then I was probably, you know, like a pundit sitting next to him, being like, "Oh, just so you know, blah 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 blah." But like with Chantal Jordan, I was just like, "Oh, this girl's class. Like she'll literally just like kick everyone's fucking head in. That's like what she does. She kicks people's head in." And she's so different, but she's not different for the sake of being different. It's authentic. Like she legitimately looks and strikes like someone, like she's, you know, kickboxer. She's going to kick your head in.
Yeah,
absolutely love that.
Yeah,
I really like little things like Mercedes Blaze shouting out Millie McKenzie. It didn't really add anything to the match, but what it did do was remind everybody we're not done with that.
Yeah.
So it's such a small detail, but it's so important. I loved seeing Alex Windsor and Danny Luna locking up again, because suddenly you're like, oh, I want to go back and watch that dog collar match again, because it was so good. Like there was all of that. Sapphire Reed, like villain of the week, absolutely villain of the week. She tried to break Kanji's ankle. Like, what a proper bitch! Like, do you know what I mean? Like that was vicious. And it was unnecessary. Do you know what I mean? Like, the way I kind of looked at it was like Caven kicked, I can't remember who he kicked, but he kicked somebody in the dick at the Copper Box to get the pin. I think he kicked Cameron in the dick, didn't he? To win the Cruiserweight title.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone's like, oh, he cheated, and like giving him a hard time. He didn't try and break anybody's ankle. He didn't try and put somebody on the shelf or end their career. That's what Sapphire did. And what? Just for a Revolution tag match? It's not even like, do you know what I mean? It's not even a title match. You could have just thrown her over the top rope. Instead, you're trying to break her ankle. But I love that, because that's Sapphire all over, right? She's overkill. She's OTT. Love the fact that it was Windsor and Sapphire at the end.
Same.
Because it's like Queen Bee and a little understudy.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see the dynamic now of the Cutthroat Collective even more. Alex Windsor's Queen Bee. Mercedes Blaze is Queen Bitch. Sapphire Reed is like the dirty, grotty little understudy who's sort of like, do you know what I mean? She's like, if you think back to the old British strong style, she's Tyler Bate.
Yeah.
If you think of anything that involves like gangs, but I absolutely adore the Netflix show Top Boy. One of my favorite drama shows ever. And you look at like the gangs that are involved, there's always that one who's there, like who's the main guy's favorite. You know, like it's a bit like when people talk about like Michael Oku being Andy Quildan's golden boy. Sapphire Reed is Alex Windsor's golden girl.
Yeah.
You've got Lizzie, who's like she's like the kind of lovable bitch. She is like, I could see an absolute face run for Lizzie, so much so. But at the same time, she's just enjoys being one of like the popular girls, and is just nasty with it.
Yeah.
Where Nina fits in, like obviously it's a little bit less clear because we haven't seen her for a while. But like, I don't care that we haven't seen Nina for a while, because she's still relevant.
Yeah.
She's still part of it. And I'm hoping, unless people know stuff that I don't know, that she will be part of it and that she will come into it. It's just she's busy at the moment.
Yeah, that's my understanding
and
as well.
And do you know what I mean? And like then when she does come into it, like that's absolutely, like, it's the whole thing. It's like I talked about it last week. The New Japan stables. You won't see every person every single show. You won't see them sometimes for 3 months, 6 months at a time. But it doesn't stop them being part of it.
Yeah.
You know, Robbie X is now a part of Bullet Club. We're not going to see him in New Japan for a while. He's done his tour, but he is part of Bullet Club. Same way Gabe Kidd is, same way Chris Bay is, same way Ishimori is. Like, they're all very, very different people in different companies on different paths, but they're all part of the group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I love the Cutthroat Collective. I'm so happy that they weren't split up at the Copper Box, which I never felt that they should be, and nobody was talking about it like they would be. But I had this fear that they might be, because again, that's a wrestling trope that I've been conditioned by growing up a WWE fan to think happens. You
Yeah.
put a team together to split them up,
Yeah.
and that's not what's happening here. I love it.
No, not at all. Just a really side note from what you just mentioned, Robbie X there. Did you hear that Kenny Omega has come out and said he wants to wrestle Robbie X?
No.
So it was talking. They were talking about his match with Gabe Kidd, and he said he wants. There's all these people he wants to wrestle in that are in New Japan, and two of the names mentioned were Callum Newman and Robbie X. So I'm gonna petition for Kenny Omega to wrestle Robbie X at the 1865, and that's what we.
Good luck with that, mate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, mate. Do you know what? Like, absolutely hats off to Robbie. I watched every one of his New Japan matches, and I watched almost all. Frustratingly, I watched all of them live except the Power Struggle match because I was back at work by then. He fucking smashed it out the park, mate. Like every single match he was in, he again is someone where, you know, we thought he was good, then we thought he was really good, and it's like no, he is also of that caliber. He is worthy of any stage anywhere in the world. He is a top notch pro wrestler.
Yeah, and I loved seeing that, like, even if it doesn't ever happen, the fact that even it got uttered is like it's such recognition. My wife was saying the other day,
because he could have named anybody, right? He could have named absolutely anybody. So whoever he does name is giving them the rub.
Exactly. And me and my wife were talking about this when I said to her, and she was like, "Really?" She's like, "I mean, Robbie X is good. I mean, she is a hard woman to please when it comes to wrestling. There'll be times when I go, oh, this show is like a 9 out of 10 for me." She goes, "Yeah, it's about 7.5." So she is a tough critic. But she said to me, she was like, "Yeah, Robbie's good." And I was like, "No," I said, I know what's going on with Robbie. Robbie has the Will Ospreay effect. What I mean by that is we're so used to how good he is.
Yeah.
So, and see him so consistently that seeing Robbie X, the way I want to say this is probably going to come off as wrong, but when I say with some wrestlers, you see them so infrequently that you've got that excitement over seeing them. And you've almost become like taken for granted a little bit. Leon Slater is another one for me that I know I've taken for granted. I love seeing Leon Slater. And I go, oh yeah, it's just a really good Leon Slater match. Sorry, what? Like, again, I catch myself with it sometimes. And I think that's with Robbie. You see him so frequently. I think near enough every show I've been to this year, Robbie X has been on, right? So
he's also incredibly good at losing.
Yeah, there's that as well. So,
and although we all know how wrestling works, and we all know that the winner and the loser is predetermined, when somebody is booked strong, you can see they get to show off how good they are even more.
Yeah.
When someone is booked weak, and that's probably not the right phrase because I'm not saying the booking's weak, but when they're booked to lose regularly, it can be harder to see how good they are.
Yeah.
But it's so clear with him. Like he is just top. I mean, it's like when he wrestled like Mustafa Ali, and when he's wrestled like Leo Rush, you can't see which person is on television every week getting paid, 6 figures, 7 figures.
Yeah.
From their wrestling career, and who's wrestling at St. Neots Priory Centre. You can't tell the difference between them.
No. Wrestling in 2024 is such a different ball game to what it was before. But going back to everything you just said, wax lyrical about this match. I loved it. Like, the dynamics are really coming through. I think I love the point you make about the little, like, you don't need them all every week because they're telling little different stories, little side quests. When they're all together, it's a big deal, right? This first, when I say all together, they've not been properly all together with Nina included since Copper Box, but this is as close, I think, as we've got since then. So that's a really good like just an event, and it was an event that I almost bought a ticket for based on that. Which I was like, oh, I really want to go and see this. I like a Revolution tag. It's a women main event with Cutthroat Collective. Like, it felt like a big deal to me, which is what you want it to feel like. Echo everything you've said about all the baby faces. Think Kanji is just at the level of Danny now. Like, they are.
Yeah.
All she needs that title to cement her, and she's
she's
there.
leveled up.
Exactly. Anita, great reaction for her. She's becoming a favorite with everyone. Chantal is going to get the rub by being in with them. What I found really interesting was, again, it was the ending, and I was in my mind, I was fantasy booking it, right? So where I had two which were running parallel, and this is where I think I've said to you before, like, it's almost like the alternate universe of the current universe are both here until it happens, and they both go off in different directions, and either one of them could happen for me. So I literally expected the Cutthroat Collective to win, or Danny Luna to be the one who gets the win.
Yeah.
Neither of those would shock me. Again, really hedging my bets here, I know. But both make sense, right? Danny pinned Mina Shirakawa. She is number one contender, you've got to think, because she's pinned a champion based on what we've said before. We've also spoken about Uprising. I know you said you were expecting that match to happen there. I'm saying I don't expect it to happen there. Neither of us really know what's going to happen until it gets announced, right? But this is where, with my thinking of where I'm going, I go, someone in the Cutthroat Collective is going to win this match, right? So I was saying to my wife, I was like, it's going to get down to two people in the Cutthroat Collective, and one of them's going to basically get taken out, and then the other one is going to throw Danny over in the end, right? That's what's going to happen. They're going to eliminate her, and they're going to have eliminated Danny Luna and make a point of, well, I've beat Danny Luna, or maybe even get the pin and lead to a match. So I was expecting Lizzie, Alex. I mean, Alex felt like the right one for it, but Lizzie, Alex, or Sapphire, who's just coming back into the country. I expected one of those three to be the one that gets the pin or throws her out to set up a match at Uprising, which would kind of carry the women's division, because, like I said, I foresee February-ish time with Mina coming back. Again, I could be completely wrong with my timelines there. But again, even if that doesn't happen, it is Mina Danny in December. It's again what Rev Pro do, making you just believe these little things are going, oh, well, I could see this match happening. And it's not just the breadcrumbs, it's the wanting to see the matches, right? Because Danny and Sapphire in December is a completely different match to Danny and Sapphire this February.
Okay? Oh, yeah, so much so. So
I remember when that was, because that doesn't even feel like this year, that match. That feels like last year. And I thought it was a very solid match. Okay?
Yep, me too.
And we talked about leveling up this year.
Big moment in Sapphire's career.
It was,
where, like, the quality of match kind of wasn't the most important thing. It was her getting the experience of being in front of that many people.
Exactly.
With a big spotlight on her. And her kind of getting all the character side of it, and you know, it's one thing being able to sell your character to 200 people. It's a different thing when there's 1,500 people there.
Yeah, I said
like that was big for me. It's one thing that I think is also interesting is Danny kind of became number one contender by pinning Mina, but on a New Japan show, and there will be some people that didn't watch that.
Yeah.
Because there'll be some people that just look at that as, oh, that's a New Japan show, not a Rev Pro show. Even though, like, we all know that Rev Pro are heavily involved in it.
Yeah.
But even then, like, there are some people who I don't think fully understand just how much Andy's involved in Royal Quest.
Yeah.
So it was a clever bit of booking for me, in the sense that it's like, there will be some people that when we announce Danny Luna versus Mina Shirakawa or whatever it's going to be, who will think, well, what's she done to deserve that? Having not seen Royal Quest, now there's no denying it.
Yeah.
She came from, you know, effectively at one point, it was like she was 3-1 down in the Revolution tag before Kanji returned with one wheel. So it made perfect sense.
Yeah. And it was one of those ones where if the Cutthroat Collective won, Yeah, great. Danny wins. Yeah, great. Right? Like, it's just wonderful bit of booking all around. And I thought the women showed up and showed out. And
Yeah.
I hope it continues for them. I think it will. The Cutthroat Collective is easily, for me, the most intriguing thing going on in Rev Pro. Well, Rev Pro week to week is the most intriguing thing for me, right? So, and that's where I think this format really sells itself, because if we're a traditional promotion like a Progress, right? And again, this is no shade at their model. Their model is what they do, but they do 12 shows a year aside from the super strong style. And you get indies who don't even do as regular as that, right? Because of all the costs involved. So that is probably the more direct comparison. And with that, you don't get all these little side stories that play out in the way they do Rev Pro. Okay. So like Rev Pro, you've got some months where you've got 3 to 4 shows in a month being happening.
I think it was May this year or June. There was like 5 shows in 1 month.
Crazy, right? And then now, if you think on like a scale of like a Progress, that is almost
half a year, nearly, isn't it?
half your year. Yeah. So where I'm getting to with this is the amount of time you have to tell these stories and tell these interesting little stories that are allowed to be ran alongside the big overarching stories. That's where I think the Cutthroat Collective specifically have gained from that. We're seeing that in people being used, like Sapphire is being used more, Mercedes is being used more, not directly in the Cutthroat Collective, but Lucia Lee was being used a lot.
Yeah.
Again, would you have
basically like her? I mean, obviously her injury has meant that we haven't had as much Lucia Lee as we were probably going to get this year, but her whole kind of run has come out of the Cutthroat Collective.
Exactly, and if you don't have all that extra time to tell these stories, respectfully to people like her, is she gonna get as much in as she was? Because the time isn't there. So, okay, sorry, we're just gonna have to concentrate more on Rio, more on Debbie Keitel, bringing them in and telling those stories. No, actually, this week we can tell the story here. We can bring this in, and it's allowing people like her and Sapphire. We talked earlier about Connor Mills, right, being the most consistent of the year. I think up there, or certainly nipping at his heels for me, is Sapphire Reed. Just wonderful. And yeah, I loved this match. Loved. Great end to the show.
Yeah, it really was. And I loved how this 229 was everything that I wanted it to be. Couple of banger matches, lots of extensions of current stories, couple of new directions that we weren't expecting at all.
Yeah.
It's everything you want from wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Because look at us like now, like we've literally just chatted. I know we had a bit of chat about other stuff for the first sort of like 20 minutes or whatever, and then we've probably chatted for the best part of an hour just on this one show. And every match has had something worth talking about.
I could tell you, Dave, it's actually been on this one show an hour and a half.
Nice. And do you know what? That's my I think anything that's like an hour and 15 to an hour and a half, that's our sweet spot.
Absolutely, mate. And you know what? I know I said at the beginning, like I was half of this wasn't as, but actually coming out and chatting with it, I feel much more positive than I probably did at the start, or at least sounded at the start. So, and that's what I love, like about chatting. That's what I love about what we do, is being able to feel a way about something and chat with someone like-minded. And that's what I hope we do for the people that watch and listen to us.
Yeah, I hope so, mate. I hope so. It's a genuine love of professional wrestling and Evolution Pro Wrestling.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, it's now 8 p.m. I need to go and get myself some dinner. It has been wonderful seeing you, my friend.
And you, my man.
We'll catch up soon.
Love you, bro.